Welcome to you. I'm Kritika Saxena and I'm coming to you from Stockholm, the capital city of Sweden. Stockholm is also the business capital of the country, and we are here to cover the India-Sweden Business Day, which is brought to you by India Unlimited and industry bodies of both the countries to commemorate the trade and business relations between both the countries and talk about the opportunities that lie ahead, what can be done, what hasn't been done, and what must be done. Sidelines of the India-Sweden Business Day, we caught up with Aditya Birla Domsjo CEO. Aditya Birla Group invested in Domsjo in 2011 and over the years has become the largest Indian investor to have invested in Sweden. Take a look. Aditya Birla, I believe, is one of the largest investors, Indian investors that have invested into Sweden. Take us through how much investment has come in from the parent company so far, and by how much is this likely to increase?
Well, the acquisition in 2011 was around $230 million, and then we have continued to reinvest what we are earning. So we are trying to develop our business on a sustainability basis for products that can be used for making textiles that are consumed in India, of course, to some extent.
Okay. So in terms of what lies ahead, what, according to you, Mr. Winters, is the plan in terms of the revenue potential that you can see in 2019 and 2020?
Well, of course, we see a growth in the revenues, a growth in the production and a growth on the volumes, which is going to support the growth in the revenues, of course. And we're using that for producing not only dissolving grade that is used for the viscose pulp or viscose fibers that are being produced in India in the Aditya Birla Group units there, but we're also producing other kinds of sustainable products that can replace fossil oil-based products, and I think that's a part that we need to do in the future. We need to grow more sustainable in our consumption, in our products, and we are a part of that.
What is the kind of contribution that Aditya Birla Domsjo has to the group revenues from this specific business?
Well, the contribution we are giving is mainly through the products and the contribution we're doing for Aditya Birla to supply sustainable products on the market.
Okay. And in terms of revenue contribution, what is the percentage, if you could tell us?
The percentage of
revenue contribution of Aditya Birla Domsjo towards the parent company and towards the group?
Well, where the contribution is towards our owners is, of course, I don't think I can expose the numbers, but it's. I think we're giving a contribution that is satisfying to the extent that is required today.
Okay, fair enough.
But of course, the requirements has to increase. So we have to increase our revenues.
So speaking of increasing, I believe that you've been looking at increasing your capacity over the last couple of years. So could you help us understand what the plan is in 2019 and 2020? By how much can you expand your capacity, and what's the investment that you would put into capacity expansion?
Well, the capacity expansion investments has already been done, so we're just working on the implementation. I would say that the growth can be some 10 to 15%. 10 to 15%
from the current capacity expansion that you've seen. So for this then, is there a specific investment plan that has been charted out for the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, that's a plan that we have started and it's already been implemented. So we are doing investments that are going to be started up next May, which will help us to take one of these steps forward.
Okay, fair enough. The other point was that how much is the exact global share of Aditya Birla Group in the viscose staple fiber or the SF business? It's apparently leading in terms of the global market share.
As the numbers I've seen, we have 17% of the global market.
Okay.
And the global market for viscose staple fibers is around, I would say it's around 6 million tons, but if you consume 96 million tons of textiles every year, there is a huge potential. And in particular, when you can see that we can replace polyester, which is today 70% of the consumption, and it's required. We need to replace that because that is, from a sustainability perspective, is not good.
Okay. Is there a plan, Mr. Winters, in terms of the R&D expansion also across the board, specifically for the business?
Well, we have an R&D unit at our plant, but we're also part of a Swedish R&D society, you can say, and that is growing. And actually there's a big interest in the Swedish government and the Research Institute to increase their efforts in just our location and around us. And I think that's just showing that what we're doing is not only by the Indian owners, but it's also by the government, seen as a very important future step towards a more sustainable future.
Okay. Lastly, in terms of acquisition and in terms of any prospective opportunities within startups, within the VSF space specifically, are there opportunities here in Sweden? Does it make sense to expand through acquisition opportunities?
There are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of innovations going on, a lot of research going on. To which extent that will emerge in the near future is very difficult to say, but there is definitely a lot of research going on that can show prosperity in the future.
Are you looking at any acquisitions, Mr. Winders?
Well, we are, but not to the extent that we are considering an acquisition to this day.
We also caught up with several other dignitaries on the sidelines of the event to talk about the opportunities between Sweden and India and what sustainability and innovation opportunities can hold between the two countries. Take a look.
There is a joint vision statement that really lays out the direction that the relationship has to take in terms of business and industry, which is really the spine of our ties. But that joint vision statement has now evolved into what is a joint innovation partnership declaration and a joint action plan, where we have identified specific priority sectors where the two countries need to work together. And some of these sectors are digitization, sustainability, sustainable urban growth, circular economy models, smart transport solutions, smart cities, waste management systems, waste to energy systems. And these are some of the strengths of Sweden that we would like to bring to India. And of course, apart from that, the fact that India and its growth story is a very attractive proposition for Swedish business and industry to come into India and to find opportunities for themselves. So it's there are mutual synergies, and this is a partnership that is natural, that is beneficial to both sides. I would say in terms of the concrete growth in our economic relationship, I cannot pin it down to a number. Our bilateral trade has increased, our investments have increased, but more than that, the interest that is generated in India is enormous. And I think that in itself is a huge takeaway from the fact that the prime ministers met and they laid out a vision. And so the interest levels that have increased, particularly among the MSMEs, are of great importance to us here.
All large companies are looking at India as a fantastic market due to its scale, due to its growth, but also a place in the world where you look for talent, where you need to find partners. So I think about where we are today compared to what it was when I started, it's not even comparable.
We are working on the sustainable technologies, which can probably help, in order to develop the capacity building for safe drinking water. And all the strength of machine learnings and the artificial intelligence and the digitalizations. Even we are trying with the hydrology and geology kind of a concept.
Water sector is one of the most primary target. So clean, safe drinking water for all the India is really a challenge. Apart from the urban sector, the rural sector is more vulnerable in terms of safe drinking water access. So how we can actually enhance that, and that's how the digital tool which we are actually working on is going to facilitate that and to try to build up information system so that it can reach the policymakers, it can reach the practitioners, it can reach the scientists, so you can actually make different puzzle bits to work together.
Time now to get you one of the largest Swedish investors that have bet big on India, Saab. critical is India in the broader strategy for Saab at this point in time? And if you look at investment, Saab is investing across the board. In India, what's the bet that you're going to take?
Well, India is one of the biggest coming and growing economies in the world. And obviously India is a very important target also for Saab. And also because in Sweden it's very important for us we work with democracies. And you're actually the biggest democracy in the world, so it's very important. I refer though to our CTO when it comes to more details. He has a much broader view on that.
Okay, Pontus, let me ask you about the R&D strategy. In terms of investments, you've invested strongly in India over the last 5 to 6 years, if I'm correct. How does R&D expansion play a role over here as far as your India presence is concerned?
So far, we have primarily done R&D investments in Sweden, and our main workforce has been in Sweden, but we are now gradually moving our R&D activities outside Sweden. So we have now research centers and development activities in US, in Australia, and a few other places. And of course India is on the map now for the next step. We have started technology collaboration, so we have some where we outsource development work to India, but we need to get a much stronger presence in the future to basically be able to tap the talent base of India as well.
So if I could just elaborate on that point, Pontus, what in the next 2 odd years, if India is on the map for a possible R&D development center, what would your view be in terms of expansion there?
You mean of size or
size, scale, talent?
Yeah. Currently, I think in our the technology center that we have today, I think we have roughly 50 or 60 engineers. My guess is that we would at least double that. But my ambition or our hope is also that we can, in the different collaboration projects that we have with Indian companies, we shall be able to expand that. But it's also, you have Make in India strategy in your country, and a lot of the different procurements that we are competing in. Of course, there is a requirement for us to establish activities in India, so you can foresee a much bigger presence in the future.
The new development center that Saab has set up, how will that, the Indian Development Center, how will that contribute towards the new Gripen?
On the Gripen program? So far it's been unrelated basically to Gripen, so we have used the technology center for other programs. But of course, if we are successful on the Gripen program, then our presence will multiply. We will have both development and production facilities in collaboration with Indian industry.
Okay.
So that will be much, much bigger than it is currently.
Okay. Let me ask you then, Krista, about partnerships. You brought a new partner on board. Adani has come on board for partnerships across the board. What is the plan over there in terms of strategy? What is required from Indian players for Saab to be able to expand and, more importantly, innovate in the areas of space and aviation?
Well, it's obvious you have to find a win-win situation where it both makes business reasons for Saab to do things in India, and India must see that this is something which helps India also, and I'm sure that's possible, but it will need some discussions finding the right places, and from a bigger perspective from Sweden in general, it's a lot of interest, I think, in Sweden for India. And my background is, of course, in space, and India has a very good space program, particularly when it comes to launching rockets. And that's something which we're looking at in Sweden. Maybe we can we want to launch satellites from rockets in northern Sweden, and maybe here we can find somewhere to work. And Saab would possibly be taking some role in such a program.
Krista, how realistic and how achievable is Prime Minister Modi's mission? You spoke about his vision, the 2020, 2030 vision. How realistic is it? Is it achievable?
Are you talking specifically of Scenery National in 2022?
Yes.
That is extremely challenging from where you are today, I would say. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it is really challenging. But it's a challenge itself which really inspires. I mean, look at the enormous inspirational effect and what happened at the Apollo program in the United States. And I think that's maybe what he has in mind. So I really hope he should go for it. Maybe he succeeds, maybe not. Maybe it will be a few years later. But the challenge by itself will drive so much inspiration, and eventually, even if you don't make 2022, you will make it a few years later, and that will be a great success anyhow.
I understand that you don't want to talk about anything beyond the technological aspect of it, but how much would Saab be willing to invest in India to expand technology from an innovation perspective? How much would you invest in India?
That was a quick, difficult question. We are investing, and if you look at our total investment, I think it's around $800 million per year, roughly. And we are gradually moving that investments outside Sweden, but it's still only roughly 1/10 of that investment spent outside Sweden. But I can gradually, we have a strong ambition to actually increase that number. And India is on the list of these countries.
So by when would you see that investment flowing into India? 2020, 2019?
I think that actually quite also up to India. Because it will be driven by the big procurement programs. And if we are successful on the fighter deal, then the investment level will go up dramatically.
And on the sidelines, we also caught up with Nalin Kohli from the Bharatiya Janata Party to talk about a whole host of issues back home. There are 3 state elections around the corner, Mr. Kohli. How critical a role would the state elections of Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh specifically be for the Lok Sabha elections, to your mind?
Well, first there are 5, because we
correct.
miss out Mizoram, which is happening there. And there's also Telangana, which will happen shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
But yes, in terms of the 3 big ones, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, where the BJP is in government, we are obviously pitching to continue in government. In Madhya Pradesh for a 4th term, record 4th term, and in Chhattisgarh also. In Rajasthan, of course, the trend has normally been every 5 years change, so we want to break that trend. State elections are not necessarily an indication of what the Lok Sabha is. In 2003, we won 3 state elections out of 4 in November. And in 2004, the BJP government lost in the centre. So I would not say that these are necessary direct implications. State elections are important in their own ways. The central election is separate. We'll wait to see what it is, but the BJP as a party, in terms of the message of Prime Minister Modi of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and under Amit Shah as our president, who is really so focused on the machinery and the booth and the organizational aspect, particularly for elections, I think we'll put our best foot forward and hope for the best.
The other point I wanted to ask you was the impact of the allegations of Rafale and Reliance General, which was in the Jammu and Kashmir case, on BJP's image right before the elections.
I mean, I think it's the manufacturing of a scam where none exists. Because if there was something, the Congress party would have rushed to court on the first day with the evidence.
You're confident it's not headed to court?
I mean, the matter is now reached the court in a separate sense.
Exactly.
And the government is responding to it. The government has come out again and again on it. With regard to the allegations on Reliance, the figures that are being quoted by the Congress leadership and the President in particular change with every speech. So that I think is testimony also to the fact that it's an attempt to somehow try and sully the government's image when no scam exists.
What do you make of the recent comments of the RBI Deputy Governor Veeralacharya about the rift between the centre and the Reserve Bank of India?
Institutions need to recognize the importance of their comments that they make. And I am of the view a conservative approach in terms of airing such things is always better, because there is no war. We are all part of India. They are institutions of the country of India. The RBI is the central bank. The government is the elected government of the people. And therefore, one has to respect all of it. The RBI Act is for all to see. The umbilical cord that exists despite the autonomy issue is there. And I think those all have to be seen, resolving it with an approach for India.
And that's all we have for you on the CNBC TV18 special show. So it's goodbye from Stockholm. But of course, stay tuned to CNBC TV18. News and updates, as always, lie ahead.